Welcome to the You Are a Philanthropist podcast. Today we're talking with Erin Cummings. Erin is an entrepreneur, owner of Yes Yoga, real estate investor, author of The Possibility Project, and is currently getting her Master's of Science in Entrepreneurship.
You are the kind of person who wants to improve the lives of others, but you need to take pride in your everyday actions. You Are a Philanthropist believes that every act of goodwill deserves to be recognized as philanthropy. Each individual action you take impacts another's life. Believe that what you do makes a difference. So call yourself a philanthropist and start a ripple effect of generosity that boomerangs back to you. Go to youareaphilanthropist.com/shop. Style your outside to match your inside. Choose a t-shirt, hoodie, or bag to show how much you love giving to others. That's youareaphilanthropist.com/shop.
Hey y'all, I just want to remind you that I need you to subscribe, rate, and review to this podcast. If you're enjoying it and want more conversations like this and want to help people get more involved with philanthropy, please subscribe, rate, and review. I want to thank you to the people who have already rated this podcast 5 stars. Please click to rate it 5 stars. And here is some awesome reviews. I love hearing the different stories from a variety of people's personalities. We all can contribute with the strengths we have in making the world a better place for all of us to live in. Here's another one. I really enjoy this podcast. It's encouraging to see that I don't have to be a multimillionaire who created a philanthropic foundation to impact people. It's my small gifts of my time and resources that add up. I am a philanthropist. And here's another. There are opportunities all around at an early age to remind us to look out for each other. It's a lifelong journey of seeing the opportunities and acting in them. Thanks for a great reminder. Listeners, please do me a favor, subscribe, rate, and review right now so more people can hear more from us and learn more about philanthropy.
Welcome to the You Are a Philanthropist podcast with Jen Klein, a certified fundraising executive and philanthropic entrepreneur. This show is dedicated to empowering and inspiring you to make a difference in your community and our world. Jen believes all acts of kindness matter, and this show is designed to help you take pride in your everyday actions of improving the lives of others and making a change in the world. Now, here's Jen.
Erin, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited we connected. I am eager to hear about your philanthropic work. We talked a little bit offline and I learned about 2 funds that you created at Wichita State University. Can you tell us more about those?
Yeah, so Wichita State University is it's like a 4-year college standard state school in Kansas. That's where my husband and I both went to school. It's in Wichita, Kansas, hence the name. But we weren't very involved when we were in college. Like I was in a sorority, but he and I both, because we had to pay for our own school, we were really focused on going to school and then also working. And so we weren't really involved in a lot of organizations, but there's like a long period between then and now. But to kind of jump ahead to what those are, I created the Women for Women's Innovation Fund that works with the Center for Entrepreneurship there at Wichita State. And that money goes directly to women who want to start a business. And it's at the very beginning stages of their business. So it's to help get their ideas off the ground and get them started with a business plan and mentorship and all that kind of stuff. And then the second fund that we just started, what is called the Cummings Student Managed Investment Fund. And that money goes into a fund that students can actually invest in trade, whether they're doing stocks or mutual funds or whatever it may be, with the guidance of a person in helping in charge of the program. But they will use real dollars to create a more of an applied learning program. And so you have to put in an application and do all that kind of stuff because it is like a separate part of like a student program.
That's awesome. Tell me how you started to work with Wichita State after your graduation.
Yeah. So we started to work with Wichita State. It's funny. I love telling this story because we got a flyer in the mail because they were building this new business school. And my husband and I were like, almost like, oh my God, like these business school kids are getting this whole big, awesome new building. I mean, the flyer just made it look so beautiful. And we were, so much FOMO, so jealous. But we knew that what they were doing at Wichita State at the time was a lot of really big things. And so they had kind of redone campus. They were bringing in a bunch of really awesome companies. And at Wichita State, they are very big on job placement post-graduation. Like they really want you to get a job even before you graduate. They really try and set you up for your career. So we get this flyer in the mail, and there was like an opportunity to have kind of, different naming rights or different ways to donate for the business school. And so we did one of those. And then I ended up becoming pretty good friends with, her name's Jessie Rainey. She was kind of in charge of like the business school, where the business school and the foundation kind of meet. And her and I became pretty good buds. Like we're the same age, we have kids the same age. We just really hit it off. And her and I started talking a lot more. And at this time, it's in the middle of COVID, and I have a yoga studio. Well, just like a lot of other people during the pandemic and a lot of other businesses, we had no customers, no revenue, no nothing. We ended up getting the yoga studio, got this really awesome grant from Lululemon. I'm sure you know that company very well. Most of us do. We all wear the pants. But we ended up getting this really awesome grant for being a women-owned business and in the pandemic, and that really helped us for a few months as we were trying to get our stuff together to kind of keep going in the business. And I thought, this is a really awesome thing just for anyone, not just during the pandemic. And that really sparked an idea for me to continue that kind of legacy that I was given of just kind of letting me stand on someone else's shoulders. And that's kind of how the Women for Women's Innovation Fund came about. I talked to Jessie, I told her about the grant I received, and I was just like, I wonder if there's a way to get more women to become entrepreneurs when they just maybe don't even know where to start or how to begin or whatever. And then, the Center for Entrepreneurship, like that's their whole thing, is to like help you build your business. And so Jessie put me in touch with, her name's Nancy. She's the director there. And also we built a relationship, and I was kind of like, let's help each other figure out the best way to do that. So that's how that got started. And then my husband's in oil and gas, and, he had a great career post or during college with oil and gas, and then ended up kind of moving up. We were in Kansas, and they immediately moved us to Houston after he graduated to kind of be here. And we've been here for almost 15 years now. But when we decided that we really wanted to make also a big impact in the finance world. So I'm also a finance major, and I'm going back to school, as you said, for entrepreneurship, and, finance is a big part of that. And so he and I wanted to make sure that like the students were set up in a way that they don't have to learn all this stuff like on the job or on their own or via YouTube or, with bad failures of their own money, but, like kind of doing it in a way that's like quote unquote safe space, that it's at least someone else's money that you hopefully won't get fired for, right? While you're like investing and learning and all this kind of stuff. And so also that was the help with Jessie Rainey. And then I've become really good friends with the dean of the business school there, Dean Gennon. She's a woman, and she has this like really big vision for the business school there. And so that kind of flyer, I always tell people, is kind of the catalyst to like help us have the end. And since then I've become very involved as an alum and helped with I'm the president of their alumni council, and I'm also on another council of theirs. And it's been fun to kind of like be part of these big changes that like the foundation and philanthropy really help create and make.
As a fundraiser, I just love the synergy, the energy that you and that team have to, better the students at your alma mater. And I can really appreciate you reaching out to them from a flyer. I mean, that's a lot of what my work has been over the last 20 years as a fundraiser. So I love hearing those stories about how rewarding it is for you and for the team and for the students. It's always a win-win.
Yeah. It's it is really fun to kind of like see them. And I mean, you just know, I mean, we hear all these stories and we see them in person, and it's fun to see their faces light up.
So tell me, were you always involved with philanthropic work? Was there things in your youth that you had done, or was it really just this, excitement over what was happening at your alma mater?
I don't know. It's funny you asked me that. I've always donated to like my friends, there was like things on Facebook or like, hey, I'm raising money for this. And I always donate like a little money here and there. And I can't remember the quote, you would know, I feel like, but it's like, you'll never go broke, giving back. And I've kind of always lived by that. It's like, $25, even when I didn't have a lot, it still wasn't that much, to just like help someone out, especially if it meant a lot to them. And philanthropic work was a big part of being in a sorority. And so I did, really understand the impact there, and I saw it there. But what's interesting, and I'd never considered this until you just asked me about it, but my dad now retired, but he used to work for Xerox Corporation when we were in Wichita, and they were a huge sponsor of the Special Olympics. And so every year since I was a little kid, because Xerox was so involved, we volunteered, and we always volunteered at Wichita State. I don't even know if I've told them this story, but we would always go and volunteer at Wichita State, and we would help my dad do different things. So it would be like me and my siblings and my dad and mom, we would go and like, we'd be timers for the swimming trials, or I would go back and forth handing everyone like their time to their slip and getting everyone in the lanes. And we did track one year, but we were always part of the big swim meet competition. And I was a competitive swimmer growing up, so it was just fun to kind of like see all of that. But we had little things, as kids, I'm sure, with your kids, it's like, there's always some fundraiser for the school. And, we always did that. And it was like jump-a-thon. And there's this story my parents tell about how my parents went and, got other donations, and I way over jumped way more than everyone thought. So everyone ended up having to pay way more money than expected. But it was always kind of stuff like that. Like I never, and even now it's kind of hard for me to define myself as philanthropic, but like, even though I am, that, I always just kind of gave because that's part of my personality. And it's just, I just like to help people. And so I think it's just kind of in my blood, I think.
Oh, I love that. You're actually the third podcast guest this season who has talked about how important the Special Olympics are to them and how they love volunteering for them. And it's such a great organization. And I'm so glad to hear that you have
That's
that.
so cool. Yeah. It was so fun. I think that I think as a kid, I probably originally so like, oh my God, I could be doing anything else, but we would go and we would have so much fun. I mean, like watching all the athletes just like compete and have so much fun doing it. And it was really one of those really cool athletic things. This is a total side salad, right? Like it was one of those really cool athletic things where like the athletes were in competition, but also not. Like it wasn't like, oh, here comes so-and-so. Like everyone was so well respected, and everyone's just like there to have a really great time and to be so uplifting. And I think that was a really important thing to see as a kid too, that you didn't have to hate who you're competing against. But yeah, the Special Olympics was definitely a big impact in my life.
That's beautiful. We'll make sure to drop in the show notes the link to the Special Olympics so that folks can check out that wonderful organization. And just going back to the multiple ways you've talked about giving back either to your friends or to Special Olympics and to your funds at the Wichita State University, I'm wondering what aspects of philanthropy you enjoy.
Yeah, I like the difference making. We get asked a lot to like buy a table and go to this and donate to that. And, there are definitely lots of ways to give back and get involved. But I think for me, it's all about personal connection or like, how can I really see the impact? And, if I don't, it's hard for me to, buy a table or give back or wherever if I'm like not connected by a person or a thing or a way that I can like really see, it ends up just being this awesome person on stage talking about their story. And I'm like, well, that sounds cool, but what now, And so for me, it's really about everything we've done. Recently we went to this really awesome gala a few weekends ago called the Southern Smoke Foundation. They did like this big wine event where you could buy a table and a live auction, all that super fun stuff. But all that money goes back to restaurant workers and mental health. And that is also a really fun organization. My husband and I met working in a restaurant, and, like we know the ins and outs of kind of the dark places restaurants can take some people, and also the really high, awesome places it can take people. And so like being part of that was also, we had the personal connection. And so it's cool to, really see your friends like step out on a limb. And I think that's a big thing. Like they have to have the courage to ask you or put themselves out there. And I think a lot of those times it's like, okay, if they're willing to put themselves out there, like maybe I should be too.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that, you have these charities that you're passionate about, and that's another nonprofit I'll put in the show notes so that my listeners can check that organization out as well. There's so many nonprofits doing such important work as you're saying, and it's really about finding those that you're most passionate about, that you're drawn to, and giving to those organizations, whether they be through a donation or going to events, like you said, and volunteering your time. Can you tell me your favorite aspect of volunteering your time?
My favorite aspect of volunteering my time. Yeah, what's interesting about volunteering time instead of just dollars, I mean, as an entrepreneur, it's like those are really your only two resources that you have. It's time or dollars. And so, a lot of times, like if you can't do the table, then you can't do the big name on the wall and whatever. Like you don't have to. You can always like make a difference with time. And I think like in those cases, it's not that the names on the wall don't matter, because they certainly do, but having those like interaction one-on-one or group setting to like really look and see the person in front of you and see the person whose life you could really be changing, I think is such a big deal. Asking, donating time and asking for time off and asking for time away from your family, like it is a lot. But I think, especially with this coming student managed investment fund, like we've been twice to talk to them in person during their meeting time. And it's also time for them, right? They're taking time out of their learnings to talk to us. But when we've talked to them, it's so interesting just to hear in such a short time like this. The fund just started this year, and it's been so interesting to hear how much they've learned, how much they've grown, how excited they are for the future, and just to hear them really like go on and on about like the impact this has made for their lives is also just an incredible thing, that you actually get to talk to people instead of just kind of, get your yearly like thing back in the mail. Like, here's what you've done. And you're like, yeah, cool. But, then you can actually talk to the group of people and see what they're up to. And like, for me, I've talked to them about my book and, mindset and mindfulness. And it's been interesting to talk to college age kids about all of that kind of stuff too. So I think it's been really important for me to kind of blend both time and money to, the organizations.
That's wonderful. You couldn't have said it better. For me, I love volunteering my time, and I'm getting excited. I enjoy volunteering for my food pantry and my bi-monthly food pantry delivery is coming up next weekend. So I'm getting so super excited to go help people. And I know that there's something scientifically proven and called the helper's high, which is that it feels good to give. And it's something I wrote about in my book. And that's really the message I enjoy sharing, which is that it feels good to give. It has health benefits, and also it's doing good in the world. So can you tell me what your greatest source of inspiration is?
My greatest source of inspiration. Oh man, that's such like a hard question. I am such a I don't know if I have a greatest. I'm such like an all the things kind of girl. I mean, I'm one of those people who's just I love just like the creativity blow up kind of thing. And so I get a little bit of that from everywhere. And I also think my greatest source of inspiration is also just kind of whatever I'm passionate about at the time. I have ADHD. And so also, a lot of that comes from all these like little places. Right now too, I think my kids, like just having them also see kind of what my husband and I are doing and, making sure that they, grow up in the world, also being able to like inject their purpose and passion and creativity and kind of all of that in their life and in other people's lives, and being able to work together with others instead of just like only focused on, well, what am I going to do, And so I think that's a big deal. But, I think inspiration comes from anything really big, like some creative project, or anything really small. And, it's been fun to kind of see some of these students, like if they're involved in one thing, some of the other times they're involved in another. And it's been cool to see kind of how all of those pieces are connected. So, in other organizations that they're involved in. And, if they're up to doing big things, I'm like, oh man, I need to do that too. And I don't know, I think inspiration it's hard to define my biggest one, because I'm I don't want to say scatterbrained, because I'm not. It's intentionally curated chaos. But yeah, I just think that like it comes from so many different places and ends up in this kind of big rainbow pile of amazingness. Yeah.
Oh, I love a rainbow pile. I love that you said that your kids are a source of inspiration too, and
Yeah.
helping that next generation understand the importance of beyond themselves, like you said, giving
Yeah.
back. And it's also something I wrote about in my book, how important parenting is, good parenting to creating the change makers of the future. And
Yeah.
I remember being in some meetings early on in my career, and the volunteers were helping us figure out who can help us get to a fundraising goal. And they talked about movers and shakers in their community. And you are just inspiring me today. And I feel like you're one of those movers and shakers who doesn't give up, doesn't stop, keeps going. So it's very exciting for me to be talking to you today.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's so nice.
So I'm curious, and you touched about it a little bit, but what would be your recommendation to my listeners about giving back and becoming a go-getter in the nonprofit space such as you?
Yeah, I think it just starts like I always say, even if this isn't for nonprofit, like you're just trying to figure out like, well, what do I want to do? Like what's next? And I always kind of just tell everyone, you just start from what's working, and I think like we talked about earlier, if you can't give time, then you can give money. And if you can't give money, you can give your time. And I think finding organizations that like speak to you and kind of your heart and your purpose and your passions is also a fun place to start, because in those other nonprofits that are also very important, even you might not be connected to them. And I think you might not, just it might not, since it might not align, the people might not align, and you might not have a great experience. And so I think good places to start are like the zoo and museums and, all of those kind of not easy, but they're those kind of places I feel like are always looking for volunteers. And it's easy to kind of, come in and work with them. And even through like a yearly membership, or, getting one of the little animals or whatever. I think those are always like such a fun, great place to start. But yeah, I think like really just kind of looking for organizations that you're passionate about, whether you were started in the restaurant business or you're, in entrepreneurship and wanting to find, a place to help other entrepreneurs or mentorships, kind of finding different places like that. I think with time is such a great place to start.
Excellent. So I know you're doing a lot of good work in the world, and I'm wondering what your vision is for a better world.
My vision for a better world. Oh my God.
These are big questions.
They are big questions. Oh my gosh. My vision for a better world. I think my vision for a better world is, ooh, I would say just like possibility and accountability. It's like what each of us are doing to create what's possible and also holding ourselves accountable to what we can actually create at the same time. And I think that's like, what am I, what's possible for me, and creating these grants at WSU. And then it's like, okay, how can I really hold myself accountable? Like, is this working? What can we do to make it better? Like having those kind of evolving conversations over and over again with those two kind of main values and keywords, I think are really like the big thing that we can all do.
Awesome. Yeah, we should definitely make sure our listeners check out your book, The Possibility Project.
Yeah.
Erin, thank you so much for your time today. Is there anything you'd like to leave my listeners with before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I think that you don't have to jump all the way into big name on the wall projects. I think it's really just, starting with really small things and just doing what you really love. And I think from there, it just kind of blooms into something awesome.
Thank you so much for your time today, Erin.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Jen.